We also have 5 bold predictions for Week 11 for the game against the Bills. Number 5, this is not a great one. Cleveland's offensive line gives up 4 sacks, and we need to point out Von Miller's there. This defense is pretty good.
Yeah, and I think the very first sentence I put there is not every prediction can be a fun one. And right now the tackles for Cleveland aren't playing very well. Jedrick Wills struggled last week. Jack Conklin's been spectacular since signing, but he really struggled against Miami. And like you said, you got Von Miller, you got Greg Rousseau, A.J. Epinesa, Boogie Basham. This team is really, really deep on the edge, so I think that's not going to be a positive for the Browns, unfortunately.
All right, number 4, Jadeveon Clowney will have a breakout game for the Browns, and that would go a long way towards helping the Browns in this one.
Yeah, Clowney is one of those guys that I think people just look at his numbers and they don't give him the credit that he deserves. I know he doesn't have a lot of tackles this year, and I think it's only 1.5 sack, but he's in the top 40, according to Pro Football Focus, for defensive ends, and he's actually graded higher this year than he was last year. You see that he had 9 sacks last year, so you automatically assume it was a better season, but he's playing really well. He's probably the only guy on that defensive line that's consistently doing his job against the run. That's never the thing people want to see when you're a defensive end. They want to see you get the sacks, but he's the guy who, he sets the edge against the defense, keeps the running back inside. Unfortunately, the running back goes inside and the defensive tackles can't do anything, but he's doing his job and he's doing it really well. And I think that going up against Spencer Brown, who's one of the few weak links on Buffalo's offense, I think he could have a good game.
All right, number 3, and we'll group some of these together. So you got Kareem Hunt rushes for 2 touchdowns. The Browns' defense will get 2 picks. That is something they have struggled mightily with. And number 1, there will be 400 total yards on the ground. Let's go back to that defense getting 2 picks. I think if that happens, it might be if that happens, there's a chance. Let's put it that way.
And that's what's been happening with Buffalo. Josh Allen is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. The guy is incredibly talented. He can thread the ball through the needle. He's learned to put a lot more touch on the passes when he needs to. He's just become a great all-around quarterback, but sometimes his confidence is causing him to throw passes that he shouldn't. And we saw that against Minnesota, where he threw one in the end zone, then he threw another one when they were trying to get into I think they were inside the 20, trying to score the touchdown instead of go for the tie in overtime, and it was picked off. He also fumbled the ball on the snap that allowed Minnesota to take the lead with about 40 seconds left in the game. So he's made a few mistakes like that. I believe it's been 3 games this season that he's had at least 2 interceptions. It might be 4. But he's shown that he's, as good as he can be. He'll put the ball up for grabs. And I know Cleveland hasn't been good in that area at all this season, but I feel like eventually the dam's got to break and they're going to be able to get a couple.
Yeah, I would agree. Those things tend to come in bunches, and the Browns need them to come pretty quickly. You mentioned the 400 yards total offense. I think an underappreciated or even under-recognized thing about Josh Allen is he is a threat to run. I mean, he is big and he is physical and he's a good enough athlete. He's a problem running the football, and the Browns have to be aware of that.
Yeah, and when I had originally wrote those predictions, it was before the game got moved to Detroit. So maybe they don't get the 400 yards between the two teams anymore, but that was one of the things that I was talking about in there, is that Josh Allen, he leads their team in rushing yardage and in rushing touchdowns. And I know in the snow game, you're not going to be able to get as much traction and run as fast, but you would have Nick Chubb on one side, Josh Allen on the other side, who would both be complete bulldozers. I mean, Josh Allen is, 6'5" and 240 pounds, something like that. And he's fast once he gets out in the open, but yeah, he's a guy that it can be really frustrating to play against him, because you can do everything right. You can have the coverage right. You can get in there, get pressure on him, and then he sees a crease and he takes off, and he could, take the ball to the other side of the field in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and that is a very real possibility, and something the Browns defense is going to have to guard against.